Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely. Feel free to get started whenever you're ready.
Okay, that's great. Thanks so much. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining me today. My name is Soleyn, and I'm first and foremost a dad to three amazing children. I've got identical twin 9-year-old daughters and a soon-to-be 7-year-old son. And as far as I'm concerned, they are my greatest achievement, and I'm really grateful just to be their dad. I'm also grateful to be in the role of director, Dad Central Ontario. So I started in this role in November 2019 after replacing Brian Russell. Maybe some of you are familiar with his name or recognize it. He'd previously held the role for, I think, 10 to 11 years. And so I'm also the founder of Connected Dads, which is a coaching and training organization focused on serving dads and families. And in June of this year, we also started the Dad Central show. Subtitle is Tools to Raise Confident, Successful Kids. And that's a podcast that coaches dads to be their best and help them raise confident, successful kids. And this is a beautiful part of our Dad Central's partnership with Dove Men Plus Care to be able to bring that to dads. And so I began this journey of connecting and supporting dads in 2018-19. At that time, my twin daughters were 5 years old and my son was turning 3. I'd been working hard to build a life and family that loved each other, one that was connected, as the name of my coaching company implied. Now, of course, the most important people in my life were my wife and my 3 kids, and I did everything I could to provide, to love, and help them be the best that they could be. So you might imagine my shock when on March 11th, 2021, not that long ago, I received a phone call from my wife saying she wanted to separate. Since then, it's been 18 months of shocking false allegations, parental alienation, and restrictive gatekeeping behaviors perpetrated by my ex-wife, court, lawyers, counselors, and currently completing a parenting plan assessment, all in the hopes of getting my children for equal shared parenting. So in my role at Dad Central, I'd heard horror stories from fathers about the injustice of the family court system. And I always cringed when they came in. How can something like this happen and no one do anything about it is what I wondered. And I really couldn't believe that those stories had now become my life. But with every difficulty, there is always an opportunity. So it's an honor to be involved in the conference and to talk about who we are at Dad Central. My personal story connects me obviously to the topic of the conference. My professional background, I think, allows me to share about Dad Central and how we support fathers of all kinds, but how we may be especially valuable for fathers who experience violence and victimization. So for the rest of the presentation, I will cover a brief history of Dad Central, our current focus, and the new initiatives that we have targeting dads, and then briefly share the greatest area of need for our organization. And if time permits, happy to be available for questions. So Dad Central has been around actually since 1999. But it started as a funded project to investigate support and the impact of dads on the health of families. And so that early work was really focused on just small little pilot projects and engaging research, actually building research efficacy for the value of fathers and their impact on families and children as they developed. And so the name at that time was Father Involvement Initiative Ontario. In 2007, I believe it was Carrie Daly, Jessica Ball, and a few other researchers produced a research paper that really summarized, I think, the unequivocal positive impact fathers had on child development outcomes. And that was affectionately called the Convincers, because up to that point, most people focused on mothers and usually dismissed or discounted fathers when it came to child development outcomes. And so for whatever, from there, the focus of FION was to engage researchers, to build resources, and then serve organizations that serve the most vulnerable and marginalized children and families. So from those beginnings and from the Convincers, there started to get more momentum built. And so there were projects that came about that produced valuable resources, things like the Super Dads, Super Kids program. It's kind of our flagship program. The My Dad Matters toolkit. Things like a new dad manual. So if you're a new dad, it's built like a car manual. What do you do when you bring this baby home? Involved fathers booklets, a lot of booklets, dad's reading toolkit. There were some developmental milestone cards, fact marks, and so many other resources. They were created in partnerships with researchers, early childhood specialists, partner organizations like the Psychology Foundation of Canada, Public Health Agency of Canada was involved, Families Canada has been involved, Movember Foundation has been involved, and Family Education Centers in Peel. And so in that process, Dad Central was able to establish a broader network of individuals across the country who worked with families. And they really believed in the value of positive involved fathers for healthy child development outcomes. And again, it was very focused on the children and their outcome, but the value of fathers being involved. And so in 2014, those individuals came together and they really started to say, how can we branch out? How can we get this into more people's hands? And how can we, see the positive benefits? And so they created and established Dad Central, and that became a national network. And so since 2015, that network has come together every 2 years to run a national fatherhood conference. One was just completed in May of 2021, and that was actually the fourth one, and that was all virtual. So we saw practitioners from most of the provinces in Canada and even from the US attending. And so it's been built off of research. It's been built off of the fact of what positive involved fathers mean to child development outcomes. And so, as I said, I got involved with Dad Central in 2019. And at that time, I was really into connected dads. I was really into growing my capacity as a father and really supporting others doing the same. And so I also saw a lot of dads engaging digitally. I was on my phone, basically, a lot of other people were. And so it was clear that dads were all online and looking for info. And so one of the key insights I got was that, dads are looking for support. They're looking for it online. They're looking in these, I want to, I need to, what to do type of moments. And so the problem was Dad Central had all these amazing resources, but they didn't have a clear online presence. And they didn't have clear branding and didn't have ways for people to find these great resources, get them into their hands. And so that was my main focus, was how do we unify and strengthen that Dad Central website online presence and make sure that people can find us. And then when they do, they get access to these great resources. And so the other thing I wanted to do is grow the awareness. I found Dad Central because I was searching, but it wasn't easy. Once I did find them, I got a bunch of resources that I used right away. And so I think the same would be true for many of the dads who are looking and wanting to find something. We just need to make it easier. And so we wanted to grow the awareness. We needed to build consistent content, clarity and consistency in what we were communicating to people. And then the other thing was we wanted to grow. And so I wanted to do that. And I felt partnerships is one of the best ways to achieve that goal. So moving into the core of what Dad Central is about. And that was resources to equip dads and empower organizations to engage dads more. The three areas here are foundational to what we do. So we've been able to have great feedback about our free ebooks. They cover a variety of topics for dads, including parenting after separation and divorce, how to blend a family, the importance of play with children and how that creates proper attachment and bonding and how it supports baby development, a lot of different things. We've got a blog that has over 400 articles. We've got tip sheets, guides, or child development resources that help dads know more about their children and how to be involved in their lives. Excuse me. So in 2020, we shifted to create new digital content. That was in the forms of webinars. And as I mentioned, we're now into doing a weekly podcast. And then finally, many of our resources are available on a cost recovery basis in our online store if they wanted hard copies. So, but what I really want to talk about are the new initiatives that we have that I think are great benefits for dads who care about the relationship with their kids. So personally, in my story, I know that much of what I've gone through, I have felt completely a lot of it's been out of my control in the ensuing high conflict separation and the court process. But the one thing I could control was how I engaged with my children and maintained our deep connection, even through the extremely limited time with them that I experienced. And I know that that has made a huge difference, both for them and for me as we navigated the experience. So it's also really confirmed by research that the most important factor for mitigating effects of parental alienation, gatekeeping behavior, or any type of trauma for children is to have a warm, loving relationship with their father. So the more dads can build strong bonds with their kids in whatever way they can, regardless of the circumstance, the better it is for the children's long-term benefit and for your ability to retain connection as a dad, to retain connection with them through the years. And so these three initiatives are really aimed to support dads in this area to be connected to their children. And so why we've chosen these formats, because you can see they're all of them are basically online formats. It's because they eliminate barriers and they're accessible to fathers from anywhere. All you need is an internet connection. And we know that dads and men are looking for resources online. So as I mentioned, the podcast, that's weekly. It's accessible on all podcast platforms, as well as from our website. The other one we're talking about is a mentorship community, and we're in the process of building it. We've got all the content. We just need to launch it, and hopefully that'll be later this year. The reality is that as individuals, certainly going through the pandemic, we've learned the value of social connections that we didn't know before, but ultimately men, fathers, dads, we're all better together. Sharing the experiences, challenges, insights, and advice together is really a powerful support for improving mental health outcomes. You're not alone in going through this, even though I have felt very alone through my experience the last 18 months. I have had some resources to be able to be connected to, and that's made all the difference in the world. And so Movember also did a research that they launched in 2019 that talked about the value of social connections to supporting the transition into fatherhood and how important it is at that time. So certainly lots to validate the value of community. And then the third one is digital courses. And so these are digestible, very focused and practical guides for the top challenges dads face in parenting, but they're also being built for practitioners, organizations, to be able to consume and grow their father friendliness, essentially their understanding of the father-child attachment and bonding, which is different than in a maternal paradigm, and that they need to be aware of, and help them then be equipped to actually engage fathers and support fathers where they need it. So we've got both fathers as well as organizations that will support with digital courses. So, excuse me. As I kind of move into the last part of the presentation, I just want to talk briefly about Dad Central and our greatest areas of need. Really just three areas. So we are very partially funded. Basically, we just want to continue to scale our programs and deliver them at to more people, engage more people. And so we obviously have no federal funding. We operate on basically $55,000 a year from Public Health Agency of Canada. In the Ontario provincial group. So we're really looking for donors, fundraising support, and grant foundation funding opportunities that can help support the growth of the resources that we have and getting them into more people's hands. We're looking for partners to distribute and connect fathers to these resources. So the more that we can have people know about us, the more that they can be distributed through the different channels and connected to dadcentral.ca, the better. And I think as we grow, we're really looking for some support for that growth. And so we need to develop probably a board of directors and have a structure, and we want to be able to see some of those types of things happen. But as I just conclude, I want to just share from, again, my personal story that Dad Central is built off of supporting children and children's development, because we know the difference positive and well fathers make. And so I have obviously had to live that out as I've gone through my experience. And, for about 3.5 months, I saw my children for 5% of the time. The only thing that I was able to do was to ensure that I was deeply connected to them in that short period of time. And I know that made a huge difference for them, even though they were going through a ton of pain, completely confused. And it is helped support them through this time. And I know that it's helped support me, because I knew that because of our connection, I could trust that it's eventually going to work out. We're eventually going to get through this, and those kids are going to be okay, and I'm going to be okay as a result of that. So I believe that the more that we can help support dads building the relationship with their children as they go through experiences of violence, victimization, the stronger that we can support both the fathers as well as the children to be able to make it through and come out on the other side. So I think that it's just a great honor to be able to be here. Personally, I just want to thank Sue, the rest of the organizers, the presenters, and the attendees for just a chance for Dad Central to be here and contribute. If you'd like to connect with me, please feel free to do so at the email address there. Please also go to our website, support anyone who is looking for it with getting our free resources, refer dads to us, or sign up for our newsletter where we share our podcast, our blogs, and our opportunities for dads. So want to say thank you so much for the opportunity, and open to any questions.